The BDO retreat is back. Mark your calendars. January 13th and 14th in Fort Lauderdale. Tickets will be going on sale soon. We are limiting it to 20 guests, and I expect this to sell out very quickly. So follow us on our LinkedIn page and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the announcement. All right, let's get into the episode. Today on the podcast, we have Alejandro Buitrago with Florida First Capital. He's a 504 lender down in the Miami market, and I wanted to have him on because he's putting up some crazy numbers. I think he said last year he did something like 90 units, which is more than a lot of CDCs around the country do as a whole. And I think that if you're interested in pushing yourself to new limits, you're going to like this episode because that's what Alejandro likes to do. And also, if you're a banker doing 504s, particularly in Florida, and I think they're in Georgia too, market, this might be an interesting one because we discuss screen outs and 504 best practices and things like that. So I hope you enjoy it. And by the way, I'm going to be on a panel moderating Alejandro and our previous guest, Bruce Marks, and of course, Alan Peterson, next week at the Flagel Conference. So we're going to be talking about these types of topics, sales, marketing for SBA loans. So I hope you enjoy. Without further ado, let's get into it. I would say you're probably, Alejandro, one of the top CDC 504 lenders in the country.
Oh, man, thank you. I mean, I don't know what to say.
I mean, first of all, we have big ones here in Florida.
We do. We have some good ones here.
Florida First Capital,
Florida
number
First
one,
Capital.
right? Number two?
1A, 1B, I think it is. 1A, 1B.
So the two big ones, and you're, doing a ton. You're in Miami market.
Miami market, gotta love it.
Big. So I want to learn how you're doing it, how you're pulling it off.
I don't know, man. It's been a minute. It's been almost 11 years now.
Wow. And you were an SBA before that, right? You were an IT nerd, right?
Yeah, I was nowhere near, lending. I was actually miserable. I was miserable working in IT. So I got out of school in 07. Marketplace was, kind of rough 07, 08.
Yeah.
So a little bit of odd jobs. Ended up working with an IT group, and I was absolutely miserable. I was thinking about going back to school. Do I want to be a dentist? What? I need to do something. I took the GRE, the GMAT, trying to figure out what I want to do in my life. And, I didn't know, but apparently Florida First Capital, Todd Kasurk, my CEO, and Debbie, were looking for somebody that was outside of banking. They wanted somebody with no quote unquote bad habits, right? It was a pilot program, an experiment. And through, one thing led to another, and I kind of interviewed with Debbie. And
this is 11 years ago?
This is 11 years ago.
So you've been at your post for 11 years.
11 years. 11 years? 11 years. Yeah. A couple of months makes 11 years. 10 years and 10 months or something like that.
Did they have somebody in that market that you were replacing?
No, so I gotta back it up a little bit. So no, I didn't come in to be a BDO. They wanted somebody to come in and do some back office, right?
Gotta pay your dues.
Gotta pay your dues, man. Everybody
learn
does,
it.
right? Gotta learn it. So so I come in, I was really, Debbie's support. Something actually happened kind of really in line with when I came on that was really kind of a blessing for me, was that we had somebody that was on our, at Florida First Capital that ended up leaving to another CDC. So that and it was just coincidentally, right when I was coming on, that happened. So I kind of accelerated, my, the learning process. I was kind of thrown into the fire. I'll never forget. I was hired on a Tuesday, and on a Friday, I get sent to some networking breakfast. I promise you, I could barely spell SBA. I get sent to some networking breakfast on a Friday.
What you're saying when you're 3 days in?
I'm 3 days in, legit. Debbie was go to this, go to this mixer. It's a bunch of lenders. And dude, I had no idea what I was doing. I showed up with a briefcase. Who does that? Who wears a briefcase? So I'm there with this briefcase with nothing in it. Yeah, literally holding up one in my hands. And that was week one. And just doing, like everybody else, right? Doing the packaging, the typical BS work in the background that is actually so critical. And then they told me, dude, you're ready to go. And I actually started in the Broward market. because
really?
we had somebody in Miami.
Oh, okay.
So I started the Broward market. A few years later, the Miami guy moved on to work at the bank, and it was a seamless transition. I mean, I live in Miami,
Right.
and it made a bunch of sense. And I've been in the Miami market ever since. So,
so when you're going to the market, like in Broward, and this was, they didn't have Broward presence at the time, like, because it's always fascinating me because we have like basically, I don't even know if that's true, but I think we have 4 CDCs in Florida.
I think we have 4 active CDCs, is what I understand.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's all 504. It's all essentially the same product, more or less.
100%.
It is, right?
It's the same product.
Services can be different, stuff like that. That's maybe how you compete.
Yeah, I mean, SBA is SBA, right? SOP is SOP. So on one end, it should never be, I can do I can do something they can't do, right? Or vice versa. That should never be the case.
Like, oh, they're saying we can do this % down and it's the same.
It should never be the same, right? Now, sometimes, it all comes down to, you've been doing this for a number of times, a number of years, you've gotten different looks and you know how you can structure one thing or another, right? So it all comes down to kind of creativity and structuring, your owner occupied rent swap doctor deal. I mean, there's really no science to that, right? But these complex transactions where you have, a refi component, a partner buyout piece, expansion, sometimes you're doing a joint 504 on real estate and equipment, or maybe do I put it all in one? So that's really kind of where you separate yourself from a knowledge base.
So you need to know how to structure those, but ultimately you're still sending it to the SBA to get approved, right?
Yes, sir.
So if somebody didn't know how to structure it, is like a lender or a borrower just running the risk that you're going to go one structure and go all the way to the end and then just be told like, no, this doesn't work when it goes to the SBA? Could it get that far?
I mean, in theory, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in theory, that could happen, right? Our CDCs here are strong enough, I think, to not get to that point, right?
How do you navigate a really complex one where you literally were like, we've never seen this before? Like, is there a hotline you can call?
I mean, I wish I could say there was. I mean, maybe there was at one point, but right, SBO today, not so much. So sometimes we can call in a couple. You have the. I'm sure you have 7, 8 questions and 504 questions, but there's really only so much. So sometimes when you know a guy that knows a guy, to kind of to chime in, but so often these things are subject to and ambiguous, so you kind of just got to go through it and figure it out. And sometimes it'll kind of backfire, and this really didn't work the way we thought it was going to work. But now we know, right? But now we know.
That's how you learn from experience.
But now we know.
So it's just all about getting reps in. So you guys
reps.
being so high volume, you're learning faster than some of the others.
Yeah. It's all about those reps.
So when you're going to Broward, how are you actually going to market? Are you going to more breakfast with briefcases?
No, man. That was one and done. I was one and done on the breakfast with briefcases. No, but legit knocking on doors, right? So you have really our main referral source is the commercial bankers, right? Commercial lenders out there. I mean, the small business owners are typically, reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, I want to buy a building," right? Mm-hmm. So I started off with the kind of the typical of reaching out to the lenders and saying, "Hey, I'm the other CDC in town," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as typically the first person, because since what we do is obviously real estate heavy, the first person that these small business owners call is the commercial realtor, right? So that was really kind of my avenue into really penetrating the market, right?
Interesting,
right? Because the competition had a stronghold on those commercial lenders. So my approach was, if I can get into this deal first, right, then I'm kind of navigating.
That's very unique because you're beating the bank. Like the bank should be calling the real estate broker.
Yeah. And many times they are. So my pitch was, yo, I'm not a banker, right? I don't care about deposits. I don't need you to bring anything over. I don't want to know about your line of credit. All I want to do is help you get that building. Help you preserve capital, get you a better rate. And I mean, the first thing I always tell any borrower is, who do you bank with, right? Because if they tell me, oh, I bank with Bank X, and I love that relationship, then why am I going to go elsewhere, right? But if they
Right.
tell me, I bank with them, but it's really just where I have my deposits, I really don't care. I don't have a relationship. Then we'll kind of have a deeper understanding of, what's the industry, what do you do, and then we have a good pulse on who likes what, right?
So you'll place it essentially for the first mortgage piece.
Yeah, we could place it. Now, lots of times, a lot of these top commercial realtors, a lot of these brokers, they already have their relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of, who will bring you into the deal. And I just kind of sit there and do my thing on the SBA side, and I'll let the broker run point because they want, their preferred banker. And then, organically, then you start creating relationships with those banks.
Now, how's this strategy work? Because I would think it'd be a lot easier to just sit there and just wait for the banks to just send you these hot deals ready to go versus, oh, I lost this building, and you're working with borrowers and you're doing more like legwork before it actually gets to a deal.
Yeah, and naturally, I'd say 75% of the business comes in from, a banker calls me and says, hey, Alejandro, I got a borrower wants to buy a building, let's go, right? So that is no doubt. But a lot of times these deals that come directly, and the more seasoned you get, you kind of know who you're playing with, right? So these larger deals, right, are the ones that I'm getting called on, right? Because they're a little bit more complex, right? They're a bit more of an aggressive ask. So sometimes, we'll come in and then we'll say, yeah, this is viable, right? And at that point we go. So it's a mix, but no doubt, overwhelming majority of our business comes from borrowers calling the bank calls us.
And those banks have relationships with the CDCs, and every CDC has, not every CDC, but like the CDC has the person in the market. Like you guys have someone in Miami, Tampa, Jacksonville, all like that. So, somebody's got to basically retire. Like, are you ever going to leave that post? Like,
man, if you ask me today, I haven't hit my ceiling. So the answer is no, right? I mean,
you're looking for your ceiling.
I'm looking for that ceiling.
Like production wise, you're
production wise, right? That balance of I'm producing and living like I want to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, there's more to be done. I mean, and thankfully we have an awesome shop. I mean, we're like 6 or 7 deep on the credit side. Back office is strong. I mean, we have a great shop. So I'm just out there bringing in deals.
Can you say no to a deal?
Can I say
if it's
no
eligible?
to a deal?
It's like, this is a small deal, super complex. I don't want to waste time with it.
So what I end up doing in those transactions is, so the answer to that is a little complicated. A little complicated. No, what I end up doing is if I get a call for a $200,000 purchase, right? Everybody handles it differently. This is how Alejandro handles it, right? So on these 504s, we have CDC counsel, and 9 times out of 10, bank has counsel, right? Borrower may have counsel. So I say it's a $200,000 purchase. Our counsel is going to charge about $3,500 to $4,000. Bank counsel is going to charge about $5,000, right? So you're talking about $10,000 in closing counsel. So that's 5% of your purchase is going towards attorney's fees. So it gets to the point where it's a bit cost prohibitive.
Doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't even make sense, right? So now I say, right, the banker's calling me. If the borrower wants it that bad, right? If they want it that bad, I mean, of course, right? I mean, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to promote the program. We're here to, so it's about economic development, right?
Right.
But there is a point where I do think it gets cost prohibitive.
Yeah, because you're a nonprofit. You're here to help the community.
100%.
So,
100%.
You can't say I only do $5 million.
No.
Doctor rent replacement deals.
Not at all. I have a $400,000 deal right now.
Yeah.
And the bar well knows that their attorney bill is going to be almost $12,000, right?
Yeah. Is that Mitch? Because he's in here tomorrow.
Oh, is it? Is it really? Yes, it's Mitch. Mitch, I love you.
Is it really? That's funny.
It's Mitch.
All right. So are you like a competitive guy when you see the leaderboard and you see the other BDOs at the company?
So I want to answer, no, I'm not. It's not that big of a deal, but yeah, a little bit. And more than anything because it lets you know kind of what can be done, right?
Right.
So we have a super strong group. Some of my counterparts are also doing some big volume. Hannah in Orlando. I mean, that market's ridiculous. We got Radway. If I'm Mr. 305, Radway is Mr. Worldwide, right? He's everywhere, doing a bunch of business. And then Kristen Tackett just owns North Florida. And that market's stupid. So no, it definitely pushes you for sure.
So yeah, because you're right. Like you have every shop. Like if you see somebody that put up 50 units or 100, what's a crazy amount of units in your world?
I think north of 100 is like, whoa. North of 100 is
100.
whoa.
How does that turn into like that's like a closing a week, right? Or no,
It's
two.
It's two. So
Two every single week.
Yeah. Like last year, I was like flirting. I was like at 90 units or 88 units or 90 units.
Dude, there's probably some CDCs listening out in some states where like that's more than their whole place does.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's a lot of volume.
So now the next person down the line says, all right, well, we know 90 is possible, or whatever the top last year was. So you know it's possible. It's just a matter of finding a way to get there.
You just gotta navigate it. You have to put the systems in place so that you can manage that volume.
What have you done to be able to do that?
So I took a kind of a particular path, right? So I actually brought somebody on to my team. So I said, I want to keep doing more, right? I don't think 90 is the limit. But at the end of the day, I'm providing a service, right? So how can I keep building up that volume without dropping off that level of service? And the only way was to bring somebody on that is literally like an extension of me. Like, so her name's Angie. She's probably listening. She's awesome. And she's literally like an extension of me, right? So anything that, comes to me, it essentially goes through Angie. And
so you're both
and
on every deal.
We're both on every communication. We're on everything. And the idea is that it's all about communication, dude. Right? I mean, you can bring in business, but you got to end up, delivering.
You got to deliver. Absolutely.
Right? So
you can't let it slip. That's the hardest part. Scaling and maintaining the service. That's you can figure
that's
that out. Boom, you shatter through the ceiling that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. So so when you ask what I've done, that's what I've done. I'm starting, step by step. We'll see what phase 2 looks like, when it gets to that point.
That's good that you still have like the hunger.
Oh no, yeah, for sure.
Some people just get lazy and comfortable.
No, man. I got 3 kids.
College is expensive.
No, and it's fun, man. It's fun to push yourself, right? You keep asking yourself, all right, if I did this, then it's out there, it's possible. I know what the market did. If I only have 60% of the market, there's another 40 that I can go rip away, right? And then you can't get comfortable because the guy on the other side's thinking the exact same thing. Right?
Yeah. And you can also grow it too, like going out in the community and stuff. Like the 504 is like a secret program to a lot of people. I mean, I feel like it's gotten a lot more popular now with the internet. So maybe I'm wrong, but when I was first doing them early in my career, it was like almost like a secret program.
Yeah. No, I feel like I agree. I think so often I'd meet people and be like, oh, had I known that you existed, I would have bought my building through you. Had I known you existed. So yeah, I mean, it's all about, I feel like a lot of what I do is educating or re-educating. And just lenders alone. You have no idea how many lenders, not that they don't know, but it's,
right.
SBA's,
you can bring a new bank into it. Yeah. The banks that don't do SBA, you can convert them over.
Yeah. Not only the banks, but the lenders, right? The actual boots on the ground, the commercial bankers that, I mean, it just takes one bad experience, and maybe they had a bad experience with a SBA Express loan they did like 7 years ago, and they think like SBA is a bad word. Mm-hmm. Happens all the time.
You recommended a book to me a while back that I read called The One Thing. What did you learn from that?
That book for me was I would say it was I think it was life-changing.
Really?
Yeah. Like that was a big deal for me. And I still struggle with it, right? Because I'm all over the place all the time, right? But it comes down to habits, right? So I think that quote in that book, and of course I'm probably gonna botch it, but it's like we don't decide our futures, we decide our habits, and our habits decide our futures.
That's good,
right? So that was my takeaway on that book. It's crazy what it's all about consistency.
So how did it change your life though?
It changed my life because I was never goal oriented. I had like this, like whatever goal. Oh, I want to do, this much, right? But there was no, plan to get there,
yeah,
right?
Right.
So 12 months later, I'd look back and, did I get there? And I typically didn't. So what this taught me is, you kind of look forward. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to be in 5 years? And then if I want to be there in 5 years, then what do I have to do this year to get there? And what I got to do this month, this week, today, right now.
Yep. Oh, that makes sense. And that's common with a lot of top producing people that I've talked to. You kind of back into it, and then you can only focus on what's today.
100%.
People get hung up all the time. Like, oh, am I going to hit my goal? Am I going to hit my goal? Just focus on today.
Yeah, no, everything else will come into place, right? Just kind of focus on those things. But yeah, dude, that's awesome that you remember that.
So do you, like, when you're like in December, because for us, it's like calendar year. You guys go off fiscal year or like calendar year?
We go off fiscal year, but I go off calendar year.
So like if you're sitting there December, New Year's time, and you're like, are you putting together a plan for that following year at all?
In December, I should have already put the plan in.
Yeah.
In November.
Right.
So, and it's funny because I of course the year matters, but kind of the way, it's likely because of the way my compensation works. I live quarter to quarter, right?
Mm.
So that's really what matters. And like for me, it's like this continuous thing, right? Like my year is more of like, what I use as that, that benchmark to be able to have something to, to look at trends for. But when it comes to like how am I planning, I don't know. I'm kind of,
you got to hit every quarter.
Yeah, just because of the way our model works, right?
Okay.
So our production by quarter is kind of what matters, right?
So if you're trying to produce in Q1 of a year, I mean, the work to produce those results happens well in advance of that.
Well in advance, yeah.
So what are you doing to ensure that that's going to happen? Is it like a business development plan where you have to call bankers? Are you still doing that type of stuff, or is it pretty much your relationships are set and you're just trying to get through your volume?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think relationships are ever completely set, right? I mean, it's always a work in progress. And I'll admit, so that's something I struggle with, right? I think you want to keep this like steady, pace of your business development efforts, and not that's what consistency is, right? And not just be like, oh, I'm not busy right now, so let me go call a bunch of people, right? But sometimes, it happens, right? Like you're managing a number of things, and life throws at you a bunch of things that you weren't expecting. So naturally, and I find myself in that right now. Right now, I'm trying to get out of this like ebb and flow piece of it. But ideally, I do have like this business development calendar that I try to go through to be consistent with my outreach, right?
Yep.
So, and that's coupled with one-on-one touches, right? And then reaching out to groups of lenders, right, via the the team lead or whatever it may be.
Like, I don't care if you take me out to a steak dinner every quarter. If you pick up the phone when I call and you're responsive and we have execution, and it's and that's, if I just know if I bring my client to you on this deal, that's going to happen. That to me matters more than anything. So I do less of the like, oh, take you out to a ball game.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've done any of that, other than I think I meet more with people I don't know, right, than go out because you sent me a deal. Let me take you here.
Yeah.
But you're right. You gotta just come through. You gotta close the deal.
I'm more about business.
Because if I'm closing the deal, you're making a lot more money and you're enjoying a lot more than that ball.
They don't want to see my ugly mug out at a Miami Heat game sitting next to me.
No.
Cool, man. Well, that's good. So I want to talk about screen outs. So with the 504, you have at your CDC level, you need to have a certain approval, right? And then it goes to
Correct.
the SBA for approval. So
Correct.
the in-house approval process, what does that look like?
So obviously first we get these deals. BDO will vet eligibility, right? Typically, in my world, it's not so much cash flow. especially if we're getting a deal from a lender, 99 times out of 100,
cash flow.
it cash flow. If it cash flows for the bank, it cash flows for us.
And even if it's projection based, you can probably get something.
Yeah, exactly.
Done, right?
Exactly. You know how that goes. Obviously, if it's coming from another source, from a realtor directly from the borrower, then we make sure there's eligibility on that piece.
Because you're going to ultimately need also a first mortgage lender.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So in my world, cash flow is seldom the issue. It'll go through. So it's all about eligibility. So it goes through our internal group. We have a credit team, an analyst. We might have a little back and forth, a little bit of questions from the analyst and or the board, and then ultimately it gets shipped over to SBA.
Okay, so that's you skip. So that's pretty much if it's eligible, it's approved, right? At the CDC.
Correct.
And my words.
Correct. No, 100%. No, for sure.
And same thing at SBA, really. It's all eligibility. There's no, this deal is eligible, but it's too risky, right? If it's eligible, it's going to get done.
If it's eligible, yeah, whether it be, we need to throw in some projections or, strong guarantor.
What's SBA doing lately with, in terms of screen outs? Like, is it 1 out of every 4? Is it rare? Is it?
I mean, we're getting them. It's a little bit, hot and cold with, I don't know how it is in your world, but, we have 2 levels of screen outs. We have what they call an avoid a screen out, right? That if you answer within 24 hours, then it doesn't get screened out. It doesn't go back to the line. And then obviously we have a screen out. So I'd say maybe like 1 in every 6. I'm totally
Why
guessing.
would they have a screen out? Why would they screen something out?
They'll screen something out because they need further documentation, to support their question or whatever it may be. So they need to screen it out, move on to the next one while we get them the supporting information.
Yeah. And the more you do that, and so if you're a new CDC starting out, you might get screen outs because you don't know. But then if you do 100 of these and you've seen, okay, it's been screened out for these reasons, so we avoid that going forward. Is it just like a learning thing for some?
In part it's a learning thing. Yeah, it's a learning thing. And I'm not gonna lie, right? There's times that we get screen outs and you kind of scratching your head, right? I mean, this was right there, or and we have a bunch of human beings on their side,
right?
I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. And I think SLPTC is doing a much better job of taking a look and identifying some of these as kind of avoider screen outs, right? So to not put it back to the back of the line, and give us 24 hours to get this addendum over to you, or just clarify this question, or maybe something didn't transmit correctly, or whatever it may be.
Did you get during the initial part, like, I don't know, COVID times, like, since you had to go through SBA and they were doing all this other stuff, were those turn times like just crazy? Or
the turn times, there was a point, I want to say like November, like that last quarter of 2020, early 2020, we were at 20 business days to get a decision. And then if you got a screen out, there was another 20 business days.
Oof.
And so, and that's the issue, right? So I remember the days of, an authorization within 2 to 4 days.
Oh, wow.
So whatever, if you got a screen out 2 days later, you'd have an approval 2 days after that, right?
Yeah, it's no big deal.
No big deal. But then it becomes exponential.
Right, because you're always going back to the back of the line.
It becomes exponential.
And meanwhile, we're in Miami, and the real estate market's going nuts.
It's going nuts.
Sellers, by the time a seller gets into a contract.
No, a bunch of pissed off people over the last 18 months. That's why it's all about setting the expectation. And that's why if I can get in, I always say, like, I want to get in, like, not even day 0. Like, get me in, like, before, right? Like if we know, and this is what I put out there to the commercial real estate community. Like, if you're like talking, that's owner occupied, I don't care if they don't go SBA, like, call me so I can vet it and I can start gathering items, because you know how it is, right? They're under contract. You get the phone call on like day 6, then like they don't answer till day 8. And then so like we're, 20 days into due diligence and like I don't have a package. And then, everybody's saying, where's the approval? Lots of extensions. That's where, it's truly, I think, where I can bring the most value. If I'm on a deal and I know kind of both sides of the deal, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, like, I'm on it. Like, this deal makes sense. Like, talk to your seller. Like, we're going to get there. Everybody chill out. Like, that's the ideal scenario. Right. It doesn't happen all the time.
No, it doesn't.
Right. But yeah, I mean, the reality is we were, there was a point that like I needed to have at least 90 days to get a deal done. Like, at least 90 days. And we were likely going to have to get an extension. Right. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm talking about. the end of 2020, even early 2021, when
Sure.
things were just stupid. Now, like, I say 75 days. Can we get a deal done in 60 days? Yeah.
Do banks ever come to you and say, "Hey, we got 3 weeks on this"?
We have. If they do, then I say we're gonna have to get an extension. We're gonna have to get an
I
extension.
mean, it's impossible.
It is very, very, very difficult.
I mean, just to get the approval. I mean, then you got to close it.
Then you got to close it. Then we got to close it. I mean, sometimes you can work miracles. I had a deal last year. I think it was with Alex Cohen. I don't know. Can I name names?
Sure.
Over at
You
Liberty.
can do anything you want on here.
Over at Liberty, and it was one of those situations where they're like, "We got to get this done." So I was like, "All right, let me call somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody." And I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We did the deal in a month. Like, we got it done and closed in a month, like in the middle of craziness. But it was just a combination of, we also got lucky.
Yeah, right.
But
it's a good point, though, setting the expectation up front, because, I mean, if I was the guy who was calling you, I probably wouldn't have called you, because I would have just said, there's no way that this is going to happen. So somebody at some point committed to something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That took a miracle, but it sounds like you pulled it off.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was a one-off. That was a one-off. But you just gotta you gotta get time, and you gotta set the expectation. Hey, this is gonna take me this long to get it done internally. SBA may come back with questions, right? And if they do, then we gotta wait another 2 weeks, right? So we're not gonna get. So what can we do? Start getting the appraisal. Getting the appraisal and the environmental up front. Like that. That's what I do to buy me time, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna go under contract, you need to, put your money where your mouth is and pay for that appraisal up front. Because by the time the appraisal's in, the deal will be at SBA, right? And it will be a couple of weeks from decision. Appraisals are taking about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So that gives me enough time to, gather the remainder of documents from the borrower and get this thing in.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're gonna wrap it up soon. I have a couple more questions though. Earlier you said something about, a BDO at one CDC jumped over to the other CDC.
Yeah.
I mean, with there only being like a couple CDCs, like, that's like a trader move, no?
No comment.
You don't have does that happen often?
I don't.
Doesn't
think
happen
so.
very often.
I don't think so. No. I really don't know of another situation other than that one 11 years ago.
Well, listen. Last question. Since a lot of lenders watch this, are there any like common mistakes that lenders are making when they're trying to engage you on a 504 deal? Like, they maybe didn't structure something right in their proposal, and you've got to come in and fix it, or something, anything like that might.
I mean, the one thing I would say is reach out to us on the front end
Early,
right? Like the sooner you get us involved, reach out to us on the front end, and then let's get a line on loan amounts, right?
Right.
And then we'll go from there.
That's good though too, because then it's like you've got a buddy in it with you. I remember when I was doing 504, it's like, all right, yeah, cool, you're at this company, but we're in the same boat here. We're ride or die now.
100%, man. You have no idea how often sometimes borrowers confuse me and they think that I'm with the bank, and right, because
right.
You're in it together,
dude.
Right?
It's so funny because when folks are shopping for that deal and they're looking for terms and this and that, and it's so, you have 504, conventional, 7A, all this stuff. Then every time I ask somebody, like years later, I was like, what loan did you get? I was just talking to someone. He's like, yeah, I have an SBA loan. I said, was it a 504 or 7A? He's like, I don't know. I said, was it a bank? Did you get 2 loans or 1 loan? And he's like, oh yeah, it was 2 loans. Yeah. They don't remember. But up front, they're all about it, like figuring it out.
Yeah. Now you say that, it's funny. Like it would happen so often. Not so much now with everything's changed with COVID. I'm not meeting people as much as I used to, or back when I first started, Bank X would bring me in and we'd sit with the borrower or whatever it may be.
Oh, joint call.
A joint call I do it all the time. I still do them. But then like 2 weeks later, a bank would bring me into the office and it's the same borrower. And I'd be like, and they're like, oh, it's you again. And you're like, oh.
I can see that.
So that's
they don't quite have the deal.
They don't quite have the deal. And then we as the CDC, I always say we're like Switzerland, right? Like as neutral as could be.
We had Brooke from Zedco on the podcast. She said the same exact thing. Switzerland.
So I'm not your first 504 guy.
Well, I could put this out before.
No.
Well, that's a good lesson for bankers who are out there wasting their time trying to go out and meet with people. I mean, time's precious. If I'm out there in a guy's office and I'm bringing in a CDC and I don't even know that I have the deal, I mean, I feel like that's not my best use of time. These bankers have to be a little bit more strategic about that, I think, because when I'm interviewing them on the front end to see if this is even a deal I want to do, like, you got to kind of ask the question, like, are we good here? Like, are we moving forward? Like, if I deliver on this, are you going to be signing my term sheet, whatever it is? But to just go and spend time just without knowing, you probably waste a lot of time looking at deals that never go through. And it's not wasting time; it's just part. It's
No,
just
I do.
part of the
I do.
part of the business.
I do.
But you can't be as direct as a banker could with the customer and saying, like, is this actually a deal that that's gonna move forward with you?
That's right. I mean, every time I meet a borrower that comes in through a bank, I mean, I always say this is the lender's most prized possession is their clients, right? So what I'm getting at is I have to be respectful, et cetera, right? I mean, I'm right or die with the lender, right? I'm here on the bank side, right? So whether this may go or may not go, I'm here to support the bank, right? So
well, everyone loves you, dude. Anytime I bring up your name, they always say, "Oh, I love him."
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you.
Why is that? You're okay.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's my name. I don't know. Maybe people, they get they get tongue twisted saying my name. I don't know.
No, you're a charmer. That's what it is.
No, brother. No, man. It's
No, you're a polite guy. You do what you say. You follow through.
Follow through, man. You
Just
gotta
do the
follow
right thing.
through. No, man, and no BS. I mean, I enjoy relationships. Like let's be boys, and if you want to do business, cool. If not, like, no big deal.
Right.
And there's a lot of business to be had out there. I mean,
Right.
It's a big market.
You're not doing shady stuff.
Oh, no. It's Miami, but no shady stuff. All right.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was awesome.
No, man. Thank you for having me.
Sweet.
I appreciate you.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.